what is the meaning of life, and who can ask this question, inquire into it? How does he ask the question, and where does he find the answer? This is the main theme of the Supreme Yoga or the Yoga-Vasistha. Vasistha is teaching. He does not interfere, and therefore the teaching does not interfere with any idea of a purpose of life you may have. That's your problem. You may think you have been created for a specific purpose. Go ahead. That's your belief. That is your belief system in which you are born, in which you are brought up, in which probably you will die. But that's of no consequence whatsoever. It is neither a help nor a hindrance. To the problem that we are discussing. What is the meaning of life? Who can ask the question? Anyone who feels or experiences a state of bondage and intuitively recognizes the possibility of freedom. Aham baddho vimuktasyam. There is an experienced bondage, unmistakably so. You feel limited in a million ways, physically, sensorily, psychologically, morally, spiritually, nationally, politically. And this cannot be ignored. But there is an intuitive understanding of a freedom which seems in a mysterious way to coexist with this experienced bondage. It's a strange and funny thing. In the same state of sleep, you sleep free from bondage and you enter into a dream bound, as if bound. To someone who is standing by and looking at you, you are asleep. To the other person, you are asleep. Whether you are bound or not bound, you are in one single state. But within yourself, when you are fast in deep sleep, there is no bondage. The experience of bondage comes to an end. And then a dream arises, and immediately an experienced bondage arises. So, one who feels that there is an experienced bondage and who intuitively realizes that there is freedom, and that freedom is not affected by this experienced bondage, and the two can exist together. It's strange, but this is called paradox, which means it cannot be taught. It's beyond teaching. But this is our daily experience. Come in, come up here. And how does one seek to find an answer to this? Will the answer drop from the ceiling? Or does only bits and pieces of plaster drop from the ceiling when the ceiling is rotting? Does one find the answer to this fundamental question, what is the meaning of life, from a textbook, scripture, from a teacher, from a library? All these may be necessary at one time or the other. As an aid or as aids, all these things may be necessary. And therefore, nothing is really condemned or dismissed offhand. But self-effort is emphasized. There is a lovely verse in another text, I don't think it is even considered a scripture, which says, no one likes a lazy man, and the goddess of fortune abandons him. You cannot sit idle looking at something and say, oh, bondage is illusory. I am free. Hey, I am free. Come on, fly out of this window, let's see. What is bondage illusory? That is imagination bordering on hallucination. And yet it has no value whatsoever. Self-effort is necessary. And what is extremely important, again, is in the teaching of Vasistha, there is a blending of what to our superficial mind, unawakened intelligence, spiritual dullness, sets of contradictions. People have always argued about the relationship between self-effort and destiny. That can one alter destiny? And destiny versus grace. Can grace alter destiny or not? Oh, fantastic questions. Of tremendous importance. Huh? Is it grace or destiny? Or self-effort? You pick up a glass and drink some water. What is it? Grace? Destiny? Self-effort? All three. And there is no contradiction in it. Destiny keeps me alive. Grace provides through her the glass of water. But in spite of it, if that little effort is not made to pick it up and drink, it will stay there forever. I will stay there thirsty. Why does the mind run along these grooves of either or? Either it must be God's grace, or it must be destiny, or it must be self-effort. If it is self-effort, I don't want God's grace or destiny. And Vasistha says nonsense, all three together. You are a living being, you must act. Can I alter destiny? Try. And you will try. No one sits there and says, oh, I'm hungry. Well, if it is my destiny, a piece of bread will drop into my mouth. It doesn't. Hunger drives you to the kitchen. And even if you don't know how to, somehow you make something and eat. Huh? If there is a headache, if there is pain, if there is illness, do you lie down and say, all right, destiny will look after me? Call the ambulance. Where is the doctor? Where is the chemist? What shall I eat? What shall I do? Does a person who resorts to such self-effort necessarily violate destiny or grace? No. Can he totally obliterate destiny? No. Why not? Because destiny is self-effort of the past, says Vasistha. Destiny is self-effort of the past. So, whatever effort you put into this life earlier on flows towards you as destiny, but leaves you free enough to deal with it now. Is there a free will? Can I deal with it? Yes, grace comes in there, flows into it, and gives you the strength, the energy, the intelligence to work with the destiny but not against it, and yet overcome it. This is natural. Don't ask any questions here. Observe life. This is the beauty. If you don't observe life and merely intellectualize, conceptualize all these, you begin to wonder. There seems to be some contradiction between the doctrine of predestination and the doctrine of free will. There is neither a doc nor a trine here. What is doctrine? Don't think about it. You all had your lunch and something is going on in your abdomen and intestines and so on. Do you think about it? The less you think about it, the better. But if there is some problem, you observe, look straight in, without thought. Thought has its own place. But one should learn how to observe life without thinking about it. And when you observe life without thinking about it, conceptualizing it, turning life into a set of doctrines, then you see that inherent in life is effort, action. Vasistha's yoga is the art of blending, harmonizing this action with destiny and with grace, without trying to run counter. Hence, after having taught the supremacy of self-effort, Vasistha reminds us that only that is self-effort which is in harmony with dharma. What is dharma? The cohesive force, or that which keeps us together, that which promotes harmony, integration of one's personality, harmony with others, with the entire cosmos, and leads us intelligently to the understanding of the state of freedom. That is self-effort, not merely beating about the bush. If you go to the south beach with a bucket and pick up water and pour it onto the beach, isn't that self-effort? Yes, of course it is self-effort. What will happen? Nothing will happen. That is unintelligent effort, stupid effort. The effort must be there, and one should recognize that in making the right effort, one should ensure that the means are as right as the end, that the instruments are as pure, efficient, and appropriate as is needed for the effort in the right direction. When you come to that, then immediately you realize that certain instruments like the senses, the eyes and the ears and so on, are not appropriate instruments for understanding the meaning of life. When you come to that point, you realize that even the intellect or the mind is not the appropriate instrument for understanding the meaning of life, knowing the meaning of life. And you also realize that a certain discipline is vital to this, to fashion this instrument in such a way that it is able to probe and discover this truth. Otherwise it cannot. The instruments that a jeweler uses, though they may look very much like the instrument that a carpenter uses or a blacksmith uses, are very different. Very, very different. There is a weighing scale for trucks and there is a weighing scale for diamonds. Very different. They may all look alike. They are very different. They are tuned differently. So, there is one sort of effort which is necessary to drive a car, and quite another sort of effort of a very different quality altogether that is needed to understand the meaning of life. So, self-effort here does not mean running around here and there, jumping up and down. All this is good for your body, and good for getting some money, good for so many other things, social relationships. None of these things is condemned. But in order to attain enlightenment, a different sort of self-effort is necessary, and that self-effort must recognize the power of destiny as the fruit of past self-effort. Destiny is not something which a god or a demon hits you with. It's your own thing. The action that you set in motion some time ago has not yet really come to a stop, come to a finish. It is still going on. But reassures Vasistha you can, by present self-effort, bring that to a stop. By applying some kind of a defoliant. But this defoliant is very harmless and beneficial. And recognize that self-effort is not only inevitable, but the sign of grace. A lazy man has no grace. He has forfeited grace. With this self-effort, when it recognizes the power of destiny, it becomes strong. And when it recognizes the need for grace, it becomes humble. Yes? All these things seem to be contradictory, conflicting. If you merely listen to the words, we think that a strong person is not humble, and a humble person is not strong. Far from it. When you recognize that this is self-effort, but if my destiny has been contrary to the present self-effort, I might be blown off course. That very recognition makes you strong. I need all this strength now in order to stem the tide of destiny. Exactly what you do with all your health food and exercise, yoga, asanas and pranayama, meditation, doctor, the hospital. All that is fighting against what might have been regarded as destiny. And even so, in the case of a spiritual life or a life that leads towards enlightenment, every obstacle is recognized. Aha, this is destiny. Past samskara, vasana, you can call it what you like, it doesn't matter. Habit. That's coming and hitting me now. Boo. Okay, but this is not something which a silly little god or demon hits me with. This is my own little baby. I gave birth to it some time ago, and that's coming up to hit me. Haha. Roll up your sleeves. And this, you recognize that the present self-effort must be infinitely stronger than that past force to deal with it. So you brace yourself up. It needs strength, but you realize that but for grace, it is not possible. Even that we are all sitting here, alive, healthy, with all our senses and faculties intact, is grace. The recognition of that makes you very humble. So, here again there is no contradiction. There is no contradiction at all between self-effort, destiny and grace. There is no contradiction at all between strength and humility. And with all these, the seeker who experiences bondage and who intuitively feels that there is liberation, looks for it. As he looks around, eager to put forth some effort and to reach this freedom, he meets, according to Vasistha, a gatekeeper to this freedom. The Yoga-Vasistha is not really concerned with uncontradictory statements nor philosophical truths. So we don't need to look into each word and dissect it and vivisect it and try to see what it might mean etymologically, philologically, philosophically and all that. It is the whole message that is necessary, that we should grasp. And in order to help us grasp the message, the master gives a million illustrations, huge stories which are more intriguing than the latest science fiction. Some of these stories are, as a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I understood one story at least only after reading the latest science fiction, some sort of, it's not science fiction, it's sort of something like Tao physics. Some writings of the nuclear physicists. From what I read in those books, I suddenly understood one beautiful incident that is given in one of the stories in the Vasistha. So all these are there. Illustrations are there, similes are there, stories are there, to enable us to understand the basic message. The message being very simple. The message being extremely simple. And what is that simple message? Find out how you are able to enter and come out of these three: waking, dream and sleep. See. Don't ask anybody else. No Jungian psychologists or nuclear physicists will do here. This is something which happens to you. Find out how you, who now thinks is awake, enter into sleep, then dream, sleep, and wake up. What is this fun? The understanding of this is the understanding of Yoga-Vasistha. There is nothing more to it. If you think you have completely understood this, you have understood the whole of Yoga-Vasistha. If you have not, come on, let's sit down and discuss it. In the state of deep sleep, there is freedom. And that freedom seems to be lost in dream and also in this state. Whether we can call this a state of waking or a state of another form of dreaming is debatable. Try to understand that. And in this state, there is an experienced bondage, and in that state, there is no experience of bondage. In deep sleep, there is no experience of bondage. Be very careful. Otherwise, you will slip into the slip into sleep. In deep sleep, there is no experience of bondage. In both dreaming and what is called waking, there is an experience of bondage. So, the deep sleep merely indicates that there is freedom from this bondage, liberation. And consciously you move towards that. intelligently you move towards that. At the same time, to self-effort, grace mixed with destiny. Then what happens? Vasishtha gives a picture of